Hello and welcome to the Deercast. My name is Tom. I'm joined by my friend Harry. We are two friends absolutely obsessed with deer stalking. We're here to create a podcast solely about deer stalking. We've noticed a bit of a gap in the market. There are lots of podcasts out there talking hunting, shooting, fishing, but nothing solely about deer stalking. So if you're here to learn about fishing or shotgun shooting, then I'm afraid you're in completely the wrong place, my friend. Go elsewhere. We're going to release this podcast on a really ad hoc basis because neither of us, in case you can't already tell, are seasoned podcast pros. So this is going to come out as and when we figure out how to do it. If there's anything particularly you want us to talk about on the podcast, then please let us know. If not, it will just be two ramblings of Harry and I. And obviously, please like and subscribe. And I think that's all the stuff I have to say. I think like and subscribe or whatever platform this is on. Or we'll end up on.
We haven't quite worked out yet where this is going. So whether we like or subscribe or what, we're not quite sure. But
we'll figure that out, I'm sure.
Yes, we will.
But
if you can, then do.
Yeah.
Please.
Harry, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about you, where you're from, what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Harry. I do a fair bit of deer stalking in the lovely Chiltern Hills, along with a good friend Tom. I mainly stalk fallow deer, but we also have some muntjac on one of the farms I stalk. There's a couple of roe deer around. The majority of the farms I stalk don't have many roe deer. It's mainly fallow, to be honest. And also get involved in some sort of park red culling on an occasional basis. Also done a bit of stalking up in Scotland on the reds. Also shot Chinese water deer once.
You have?
Which was
and not with me as well.
Not with you actually, no. But actually on a paid stalk, which was my first experience of a paid stalk. That's another story. The only one I haven't shot is Seeker, so I've still got that on the list.
We've got to tick that. I'm exactly the same. We've got to tick that off at some point.
Yeah, I'm not as desperate to shoot one as the other species that I didn't have on the list.
Everything I've seen or heard about just makes it sound really hard, which just puts me off. I know it sounds really lazy, but I just can't be bothered.
Yeah, they seem like tough to shoot or tough to stalk into because they're very wary and wily and all the rest of it. Apparently, very hardy. They run a long way. Apparently, They did some on field sports, didn't they? And
I think so. Yeah,
sure they'd be standing around quite a long way. I think so. Anyway, I'm sure one of those. What do I shoot them with? I started off with a 243, and it's probably majority of people in the UK did. That was a little bit small for sort of fallow deer. Quite good for roe, obviously awesome on muntjac. So I moved on to a 2506 Remington, which is what I was mainly shooting fallow with. Sort of 117 grain bullet, very, very flat. That seems to do the trick. I just bought a 308 rifle, which I've been sort of drag kicking and screaming into the world of 308.
By me, I took about when you bought your 308. I was like, finally, he's converted.
It did take a bit of time. I was fairly reluctant to begin with to go with convention, but I've conceded that in order to shoot copper rounds and things like that, and all the rest of the sort of boring reasons, then it actually does make sense.
In fairness, on paper, a 308 with standard conventional ammo, it's got the trajectory of a rainbow, and I can see why some people don't necessarily want it. But I should say I've recently been trialing some really flat shooting copper stuff. I've home loaded it myself, so 110 grain stuff. It's going about 3,000 feet per second, and it's basically kind of like 243 trajectories, and actually that's kind of made me fall in love with the caliber all over again. I think possibly what made you think.
Well, that was always my trepidation with it, because it was, like you say, like shooting a cannon. It would just loop. And, I always thought you needed your ballistic turret and kind of dial in, or range find it. That's 250 yards, whack it into number 2 on your dial or whatever, and then you're in. Otherwise, you're sort of 4 inches out. And, if you're shooting, the top end of the lead ammunition grain weight, then it is a bit like that. But 110 grains, like I say, or even 120, and even the 150 stuff actually isn't that bad, because I put some of that through it recently, and it says, I think if you're banging at 100, it's about 3.5, 4 inches at 200, which isn't that bad for quite a heavy round. And like I say, the 110 grain stuff, it's like later.
Unbelievable.
And there's just there's so much availability, and there's so many rifles and much ammo, and all of those sort of reasons. So I have been converted, and I've just bought a rifle. So I should go through the makes actually as well, shouldn't I? Because people are probably interested. I've got a very sort of standard Tikka T3 243. First rifle, absolutely loved it. Love Tikkas, can't go wrong with them. But it was like sort of classic synthetic stock, very sort of basic rifle, basic as they get. Like, can't go wrong, absolutely loved it. Had it for about 2 years, did absolutely everything with it. Then I wanted to be a little bit kind of individualistic, I suppose, and get something a bit traditional, because I'm a bit of a traditionalist. So I got a Heim, let me pronounce it, SR20 in 2506, which is lovely, sort of Mauser actioned, timber stock, kind of jeweled bolt, all the nice sort of things you like. Really long barrel, like 20, I think it's got a 26-inch barrel, and then when you put the mod on, it's like a lance, which is quite cool. And then I've literally just bought a Sauer 404, synthetic again, because it's quite practical, boring reasons, but it is, and cheap, obviously. 308, which I've shot maybe 15 rounds through, something like that.
And you're finding the rather painful world of owning an expensive rifle, aren't you?
It is. It's just like, obviously it doesn't have the just like silly things. It doesn't have sling swivels like in the normal place, so you can't put a Harris bipod in it. Okay, so you've got to go. Okay, well, what are the options? You've got a little spigot thing at the end. That's where you're supposed to put the Sauer bipod, which is £600, obviously.
I mean, that's how much you're supposed to spend on a
bipod, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. So that obviously was a no-go. Looking at the other options, you've got... Oh God, dog's getting a bit low.
Yeah.
You've got like the Spartan one with the adapter, but then that's quite expensive, and you've got it hanging off the edge all the time. And just everything just costs money on it. So it's the right faff. I think Tom's going to go sort his dog out.
I am going to sort the dog out. I mean, this probably sets the tone for how professional this podcast is going to be going forwards.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Tom's just left me, but that's good. Sorted it?
Yeah, dog is sorted. Shot with a 308.
What else about the Sauer? It's lovely, really lovely rifle. I haven't really used it very much yet, though, so I can't comment too much. But everything's just very expensive. Like the saddle mount for the scope, with the rings, is £500.
Good, yeah.
Well, and then it does go back to zero, so it's worth the money. I would, well, maybe not. I don't know. No. I haven't tried it yet, actually. Back to zero.
It is so hard if it doesn't go back to zero and you pay £600 for
We're gonna have to try it, aren't we?
We are.
But the engineering, you can kind of see where the money's gone, because the engineering is really, really smart. But it's a lot for mounts when you can pay 80 quid for Optolok mounts, 100 quid.
Yeah, maybe 100. Yeah, maybe
bases and rings. Yeah,
something around that. I think it might be 3 figures, but it's not.
It's quite hard to justify 5 times that, though.
Yeah.
That's hard to stomach. What else is expensive on the Sauer? The stocks are.
I was going to say, when you're looking at changing the bolt knob as well or something, and that was...
Well, I looked kind of out of interest at you can change like the little, I don't even know what you call it, the heel plate underneath where you put your hand, where it comes down on the stock. That little plate thing, you can change that, and then you can get like stags and things and all the rest of it. And they start at about 300 quid. And the bolt knobs, you can get a nice wooden one or whatever, or like a little, sort of knurled metal one. But they start at 150 quid.
You don't regret this purchase at all?
Well, I'm not going to buy into the Sauer stuff. Okay. I think the rifle itself is worth the money, because I really like the engineering and it's bloody accurate. And to be fair, I did get a bit of steel, so I can't really complain. Yeah. But I'm not going to buy into all of the gear. I'm going to sort of retrofit it, I think.
So Sauer probably not going to sponsor this podcast going forward, is what we're going to say.
I think if Sauer's, we're going to see what I'm going to do to this rifle, they probably would turn in their graves or sort of wince a bit, Yeah. I'm going to bastardize it slightly. I'm going to drill into it. Lots of stuff.
Oh my God.
They'd be cringing in their factory in Germany.
Yeah. But they are German, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was about to see my worst German accent being of them cringing at the thought of you drilling into it. I mean, maybe the next podcast should be a video of you drilling into your stock and it all going horribly wrong.
We could do a sort of how it went.
How not to install. Yeah.
Yeah. By the time we get to the next one, I might have done it, and I might have either a success story, or a hilarious story of me destroying a stock that's probably, what is it? Probably 1,500 quid, £1,000 for the most basic synthetic stock. I think the wooden ones are about 5 or 6 grand.
I was about to swear, and I should point out we're hopefully not going to swear on this podcast because neither of us actually know how to bleep out.
Do we have? Why can't we not swear? This is going on the internet, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think you're then allowed to.
Oh, really? Okay. This is family friendly.
Yeah, family friendly, of course. Okay. Talking about deer being killed, but yeah. Otherwise, very family friendly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to be on our best behaviour, but we're quite well behaved.
We will try.
We're moderately well behaved anyway. Tom, over to you. Tell us about your bits and bobs.
Excuse me. So very, very similar story to Harry, really, in terms of, unsurprisingly, we sort of live, 10, 15 minutes apart, both majority of our stalking in the Chilterns, again on fallow, but lucky enough that we've got a few farms that I stalk on that have muntjac, a little bit of Chinese water deer, although they're proving very elusive at the moment, roe, and then help with the management of some red deer in a park where Harry and I were earlier this week, actually, and we'll probably come on to a bit later. Me, gun-wise, very, very boring. My shooting started primarily sort of at Bisley, sort of long-range stuff, and as a result, my first rifle was a 308, and I've just kind of stuck with it since because, well, it's the best caliber in the world. Okay, fine. I should also point out this is going to be the only podcast where no one mentions a 6.5 Creedmoor ever, because if they do,
they will actually be shot.
Yeah,
with
a 6.5 Creedmoor.
Okay, I don't know, because I have to use one then. I couldn't stomach doing that.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, with the 308.
We probably alienated about half of our audience of
goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye, all 2 of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening. Yeah. It's been fun.
We don't want you anyway.
Yeah. I think at one point I owned something like 3 or 4 308s. I'm now down to 2. One is a very boring Tikka, which I've just replaced the stock on with a form laminate stock, and it is
lovely.
It is a thing of beauty. Which, interesting enough, I wasn't really expecting. I mainly got it for the kind of ergonomics and the being a bit more durable. But actually, have noticed group sizes close up quite a lot, actually, which has been interesting.
Is the sorry to interject? Is the bedding or the what? Why is that? Do you think?
I think it's actually just because it's heavier.
Oh, really?
I think so. The normal Tikka stock, I think, weighs something like 800 grams, which is pretty light. And then the form one is about 1.2, 1.3 kilos. So I think it is just the weight of it.
You're adding on about what 400, 500?
Yeah. So you're kind of 50% extra weight, basically. And I think just that means it's just a bit more planted and it absorbs the recoil a bit better.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the actual inletting of it, the inletting is beautiful, like really, really well done, CNC machined, all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. But actually the recoil, lug, bolt, everything like that, all exactly the same as the standard stock, which is why I wasn't really expecting much of a change. And as I said, that wasn't really why I bought it. But
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I did, or I found made a difference with my first rifle, the Tikka, just the T3, not the T3X, was they used to have, I don't know if they still have this problem, but the recoil lug, like the one at the front where it kind of sits into the action, where there's that sort of a slit milled in, isn't there? And there's that little sort of biscuit almost, if that's a woodworking term, like a biscuit,
Of course, not the food, not the food term.
No,
got nothing to do with the fact you've got 2 chocolate biscuits in front of you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about biscuits. A biscuit is not the right word, but you know what I mean. A little piece of, I think it was mild steel.
Yeah.
And when I was shooting quite a lot, I found that it had actually kind of bent it almost, and a lot of people found this. I'm looking at on the forums and all the rest of it, stalking directory, and most people replaced them with the titanium one. And once I did that, magic.
Really?
Much better. Yeah, much better. It's just a lot tighter, I think, in the stock, because it was kind of, it literally had bitten a chunk out of this hard steel thing.
So was your Tikka
No, not a lug.
Yeah, I think it is a lug.
Maybe a lug.
It's a recoil lug.
That's it. Recoil lug, not a biscuit.
Recoil biscuit. Good luck.
We're very hungry.
You can tell you're not a gunsmith.
Yeah.
So was your Tika a T3?
Yes.
Because I think they changed it back to the T3X, didn't they? I don't know what they. I don't know what came. I can't really remember, but there was the T whatever, and then they introduced the T3.
Yeah.
And they made a load of like cost savings on it, so they made the bolt shroud
plastic, which I replaced immediately because that broke.
Immediately, you were a sucker for all the marketing.
But it did actually break, so I needed.
Did it?
I actually needed to. Yeah. It kind of bent.
And then, so I only remember because when I bought my Tika, it was a T3X, and I remember the box came plastered in like all these things that upgraded, and it was the recoil lug, I think, the bolt shroud, and I think they said it widened the ejection port. And I think that was it in terms of upgrades.
I've never had an ejection problem, but I imagine it's probably for the more magnum action, longer
big
cases.
boys, rounds.
The 243 is only a little fairly stubby tiddler.
Yeah.
So yeah, but good rifles.
Really good. So
can't go wrong.
That's one of my rifles, and then the other one is a slightly kind of. I hope none of Thames Valley Police are listening to this. Is basically a toy. It's a kit valve. I bought it as a good time gun. Basically Roebuck stalking rifle. It's awesome, unmoderated. I put a really light 6x42 scope on the top of it, so it's you can basically shoot it one-handed if you wanted to.
It is gorgeous, and it's got a beautiful set trigger on it.
Yeah.
I've handled it for the first time the other day and didn't quite appreciate how light it actually is. It is literally like holding a boy's shotgun is the only or an air rifle, but that's not a nice thing to say in a way, but it's not like an air rifle. It's very beautifully made, but what I mean? It's kind of light and it's very slim, so it's all I can equivalate it to my old sort of very sort of sleek air arms air rifle. It was very much like that. And the trigger on it with the set thing. Trigger. Oh god,
it kicks like an absolute mule. I think the manufacturer describes it as a mountain rifle, which basically means you want something really super light. You're going to fire one shot and then disappear home, and that's
once a year.
Yeah, that's basically what it uses for.
Massive great coat.
Yeah,
on a chamois.
Yeah. I haven't quite made it to the chamois bit yet, but otherwise, that's basically how I use it. And it's awesome. I absolutely love it. It's great fun.
How many deer have you shot with it?
Quite a few actually.
Okay.
I made sure the first deer I ever shot with it was a roebuck. And I think I have
just to christen it properly.
Yeah, just to give it the full air it deserves. I think I've probably shot about 8 or 9 deer with it, most of which will be roebuck. I think there've been a couple of roe doe, because sometimes in the winter it's sitting there in the cabinet and I'm like, I should give you some love.
Yeah.
And I take it out. And
very nice to have something like that.
Yeah.
It's like the sort of Porsche or a bike that you take out on the weekend, but obviously we're into stalking, so.
But as I said, you're not allowed to say that to Thames Valley Police, because to them these are all tools.
Well, it's
essential tools.
It is essential.
Yeah.
For your enjoyment of deer stalking. That's good enough reason.
I think so.
Yeah.
Put that on your next variation.
Yeah.
See how that goes for you.
Yeah. And do you shoot the same rounds through it as you do the Tika?
I do,
the 110 stuff.
Yeah, 110. So I should explain. So I used to use 150 grain Sierra Game King heads. I've always reloaded, partly because I'm just a massive nerd, but partly also because I'm a bit northern and a bit of a cheapskate. So basically, when I learned that reloading was cheaper than factory, I was like, this is the way to go. I think it's now actually probably costs exactly the same, but you do get a lot more accurate ammunition out of it, I'd say, than factory stuff. Used to reload 150 grain stuff, then I moved down 130 grain stuff in copper. I just didn't really notice much of a difference with that to the 150s, to tell you the truth. And it wasn't really expanding on, particularly on the smaller stuff like roe. And sat in front of the TV as I was doing one day, like, when you're kind of searching the internet, and I was like, I think I came across there from someone on possibly a stalking directory forum who said they in a 308 they were using 110 grain, driving it at 3,000 and whatever feet per second, and they're like, it's basically flat. And I thought, interesting. Maybe I should give this a go, and give it a go. And I remember the first time, I think it might have been a fallow pricket I had in my sights with it, I was slowly squeezing the trigger, and I think I closed my eyes because I was like, oh god,
Oh, no.
I don't know what's going to happen here.
And
I'm used to with 150 grain Sierra Game King stuff. It would you'd hear a massive thwack, and the deer would run sort of 20 meters and then just drop. And with this 110 grain stuff, squeezed the trigger, gun went bang, didn't hear a thwack. I think by the time I opened my eyes, I didn't know where the deer was, and I was like, oh god, this has gone horribly wrong. As it turned out, deer was absolutely dead as a doornail where it stood. And I don't know. I mean, someone with a more scientific brain than mine will probably say because of the higher velocity, there's more hydrostatic shock or something through the carcass, and it drops or whatever. But I've just found with 110 grain stuff, even though it's lighter, stuff just drops. Even if it runs, it doesn't run as far as I'd found with my 150 grain stuff. 150 grain was great and it killed things, but something would always run with it unless you smacked it through both shoulders. I think purely because 150 grain is just a lot of lead to be, or a lot of weight to be.
And it's going at a fair bit slower, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, speed kills. Listen to the road signs. I've found some. That's a terrible joke.
You're not on speed awareness.
I've had a very similar experience with the 2506, shooting 117 grain stuff, which is kind of, I think it's the heaviest you can put through it, but they're absolutely screaming out of there, and it's developed as a sort of varmint round, so it's very, very flat anyway. But every single almost fallow I've shot has pretty much dropped within maybe 10 yards, and I do attribute it literally just to the speed of the bullet going in and hitting all of that fluid that's behind the rib, or inside the sort of vital cavity, and just it must just cause an immense amount of shock. And whenever I grab at them, it's just soup. The chest is soup. And if you hit a shoulder, then it's just...
Sometimes have a little spoonful of that soup, or...
dig into a liver.
Stalker's breakfast.
If you want a bit of sort of heart or something, or, I don't know what people... I mean, the liver's normally intact. But the lungs and things, it's all just gelatin. Basically red jelly. I've had some very good experience with that.
The only thing I would say with my 110 grain stuff, which you might find with your 2506, is I find with the 110 grain compared to the 150 grain stuff I was using before, the 150 grain would basically pencil straight through the animal. It'd mess up everything in the middle, but it basically pencils straight through. And then when you were skinning it, you'd have quite a nice, clean carcass. Whereas 110 grain stuff, I do find there is more blood under the skin on normally the exit wound side.
Yeah, I have to say, if I'm shooting a smaller fallow deer, it does leave a rather large gap. Large hole at the other end. Especially compared to shooting, because I used to shoot the heaviest possible 243 bullets because I thought heavier was better. Not necessarily always, but that was my sort of very.
We're talking in relation to shooting here, right?
Sometimes I pick all the things. And that was, fantastic. Very, very little meat damage. But as I said earlier, they did run, a big fallow, even a big doe or a decent sized pricket will, they'd run 60, 70 yards every single time. And where me and Tom stalk, obviously with fallow, most of them are woodland edge, and so they dash straight into a wood. You're at the edge of last light. You're there for 2 hours afterwards trying to find it, even if it's, even if they run 40 yards, it could be under a log or something. I just couldn't really do that just because of the stress and the time involved, and also where we are in the south of England, obviously we don't necessarily always own the bit of wood where the deer come from. So there's a bit of land that I shoot where there's a field next to a bit of wood that we don't own, and if they don't drop in the field, then I have to go, ring up the adjacent landowner and say, terribly sorry, deer's run into your wood, can I go and find it?
It's a really good point actually, because I took out Al Gabriel stalking month or two ago, who's one of the Basque council members, and we just got chatting on Instagram, and basically it turns out he's never shot a fallow deer before. He shot every other species, and he says, I think I posted something on Instagram about shooting fallow, and he's like, oh, this looks amazing, they're my last species. And I said, we've got so many of them, they're basically a pest. If you came and shot one, you'd be doing me a favour. And he was like, great, see you tomorrow morning. Came down, and I think he lives, he'll probably correct me now, I think he lives up in Yorkshire. And basically he came down and he saw a load of fallow, going to about to shoot one from a high seat, and they spooked, so he didn't actually get let off a shot. But we were catching up afterwards, and he said stalking where we are is just totally different to anywhere else. Like when we we were catching up afterwards. We were just kind of like stood on one of the tracks on the farm, and I don't know, like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, we passed, I don't know, like 6 or 7 walkers, a horse rider, someone on a BMX, someone else walking the dog.
Yeah.
And he was like, just down here is just a whole nother ball game. He was like, I have no idea how you stalk with all these people. You're right next to main roads. I mean, one of the bits of stalking ground we've got borders the M40. Like, it's if something goes horrendously wrong, you've got a wounded deer running around on a motorway. So
they need to drop.
They need to drop. They need to die pretty quick. Yeah.
We can't be chasing them for 100 yards.
No.
It's just not practical or sensible. And that kind of factors into your good reasoning, doesn't it? I think when you're sort of justifying.
Yeah.
Because that's the conversation I have with my FEO when he was like, well, you've got a 243, and that's a good dig. Well, why do you want this? And I literally said to him, I was like, they have to, I want to be able to kill a larger deer more humanely, quickly, and stop them from running. Yeah. Because practically you just can't sometimes. Yeah. And the law on following up in neighbours and things like that gets a bit tricky, and you just don't want to be doing that sort of thing if you can avoid it. Yeah.
But in fairness, say behind you, Harry, so Harry's in my study at the minute, is a little glass jar with, and this is going to sound so gross, some of the bullets that I've recovered from fallow. It's slightly morbid, isn't it? And basically in there are some copper rounds I've recovered from fallow, and there are a couple of lead ones as well, actually. Don't pull that face at me. And those are all 308 rounds, but they've all been stopped broadly within a fallow. So I mean, it does show even a 308 round, there's a hell of a lot of resistance in a big old fallow carcass. I mean, one of these is from a monster fallow buck, and this only made it through one shoulder.
Which one was that?
I think it was this kitty here.
That one. So just to describe, this is a copper round.
Yes, it's Barnes TTSX, which is all copper. It's got a little blue ballistic tip type thingy, but I mean, basically the point of the tip is to get pushed back into the metal to start it mushrooming, really. And I mainly kept these because they were just quite good comparisons to the lead stuff that I used before. Because I mean, the lead stuff basically just disintegrates, and you end up with I don't know even how you describe it. I mean, it looks like an air gun pellet basically when you're finished, whereas the copper stuff looks like
for the benefit of the listener, these copper rounds are beautifully 4 petals perfectly folded in on themselves, kind of scroll like. Then you've got the sort of monolithic, I suppose you call it, back portion that stays completely intact. This looks like it would do on the box virtually, and the lead stuff just looks like you've almost taken a lead round and just sort of folded it in half. It hasn't really petaled or expanded in the way that you just looks like a big lump of lead, like you dropped it or you've melted it and dropped it into a bit of water.
Looks like my soldering.
Yeah,
it's cool. Yeah, and the lead ones. What's really interesting is the lead ones. If you weigh them, they were 150 grain bullets. They'll probably weigh half of that at most now.
Really?
Whereas the copper ones, if you weigh them, they'll probably still weigh 110 grains.
This is the bit of a debate, though, isn't it? Because a lot of people say, yes, fine, but the good thing about lead bullets is that they fragment and they send a little bit. They hit the deer, bam, and they turn into an array of little pieces, and they go everywhere. And so chances are that one of them will go through something very, very vital, even if the majority of it doesn't. And so that's why they kill better. But I don't think we really do think they do kill better, to be honest, though. I
don't think they do. And what I've more found, and I know people probably think he would say this having converted to copper, but again, we should say, Harry and I butcher the vast majority of our own deer, vacuum pack it and then sell it ourselves. So kind of involved in as opposed to say dropping it into a game dealer. And I suppose the relevance of that is that we see what the bullets have done to our carcasses, and a lot of times, and it's mainly now, if a friend is with me, shoots something and they're using lead ammunition and I start butchering it for them, and you find shards of lead everywhere in it, you're just like, oh my god. Whereas the copper stuff, if you find the bullet, happy days, it's in one big piece, normally under the skin somewhere, but 99% of the time you don't, it's gone straight through and it's done whatever it needs to have done. So,
and we should say that we're not, I mean, are we die-hard copper converts? I'm not. I'm currently shooting lead bullets, mainly because I I don't home load, and therefore couldn't find anything at a reasonable money for the 2506. Part of the reason I bought the main reason probably is I bought the 308 is to get some non-toxic stuff. But I have been shooting lead for the last however long I've been stalking, 5-6 years or whatever. You converted what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, probably about 2 years ago. And I would definitely say at first I thought it was rubbish. So I was really, really stupid, in fairness, in that when I first went to copper, I was like, well, I use 150 grain lead bullets now. I'll buy 150 grain copper bullets to replace them with, which to my mind, quite a logical replacement. But turns out, and for anyone who hasn't made this transition yet, copper is less dense than lead. So to get the same weight, the bullet is much bigger. So basically what I ended up with were these monster long rounds to basically fit all the powder and the bullet in. And either that or you ended up with like really compressed loads, which are basically the bullet is seated, so it had to be seated so deep in the case that it was like crunching powder when you loaded it. And I just, every time I squeezed the trigger, I was like, this is going to blow half my face off. So 150 grain stuff, I basically just didn't have any confidence in it. So then I knocked down to 130, and in a copper round where it retains all of its weight, they were just penciling straight through things, not deforming, and I was getting runners, and it just wasn't working for me at all. And I then went to 110, and I kind of, for me in 308, that's the sweet spot. They, as you've seen by those bullets we've just been handling, they deform perfectly, they kill perfectly, and they're amazingly accurate.
Yeah.
So I'm a convert, but I think there's a lot of trial and error that goes into it to find what works.
This is not to say that we haven't had the old one. Do you remember that doe that we had that actually did run a long way?
Yeah.
But that being said, I've had the same with a lead round. I mean, sometimes it just bullets when they hit living animals do all sorts of weird things, and sometimes it's very difficult actually. I mean, when you've got the deer there to actually do a post-mortem workout what happened, and the one that you'd shot. It wasn't lung shot or anything, it was properly heart shot. And it ran, I mean, granted down a hill, but it probably ran 80, 100 yards. And then got up again and ran a little bit further, which was really shocking.
Yeah.
But the bullet actually did what it was supposed to. The heart and the lungs were, and still, as you'd expect with any sort of bullet.
We probably discovered some kind of like superhuman fallow there that we've just wiped off the face of the planet, which we probably shouldn't have done, or maybe we should have done. But for the listeners, basically, it was a fallow. Maybe this was a problem. It was probably sort of 25 meters away. Chest shot it, and it ran as if it wasn't shot at all, and we were both like, "Oh God." Found it not far off. There was a fairly decent blood trail to it, and when we sort of started to get close to it, it decided it was going to have another dash, and had to finish it off with a headshot. But
just you're always going to get stuff like that, and people who say, "Oh, well, I've never had this, I've never had that," probably haven't shot enough deer, because it always happens. Like when bullets moving 3,000 feet per second hit something living, weird things happen sometimes. And I don't think you can necessarily attribute that to copper, because you've had one. Because I've had the same thing with lead. I've had ones run off, actually branched off the 243, which is more of it ran, like 200 yards or something, and then got up again. And it was properly chest shot, which even with the 243, it should have easily done the job on it. There we go. Enough about bullets, I think, because we're going to alienate,
all the 6.5 people have come back now.
Yeah,
they're like, yes, yeah. We were going to include a section in this podcast that was sort of named after Harry's brother, because he was a student living at home, so paying no rent, loves his stalking.
Well, he was
as well.
Between school and uni doing a supposed, to be fair to him, it was like a COVID gap year. So he was supposed to be going
gap year.
But he was just living at home, earning a lot of money, like just doing odd jobs around for various people, mowing lawns. Many more people pay for mowing lawns. Stupid money, more than I ever made washing up at the pub. Anyway, and he got quite into deer stalking, after following my lead, obviously, as a premier role model as an older brother. And just started buying, nicer kit than I did, and we kind of had a bit of a one-upmanship you know, he buys this, I must have this, I must have that again. So we thought we'd call it Bobby's Bits. My brother's called Bobby, and it's always Bits.
Yeah. Which we're still sort of undecided on, or are we decided on now?
I think it's quite good. Bit of alliteration. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Bobby's Bits.
So basically, the Bobby's Bits section of this is Harry and I have both, well, self-confessed gear junkies, basically saying what have we very recently bought, or what are we just eyeing up at the moment, and if our other halves are listening, we're definitely not considering buying any of this stuff.
No.
So,
of course not. And I think I don't think that anyone. Well, this is a really blanket statement. I think the majority of deer stalkers are proper gear junkies.
Yeah, 100%.
I haven't yet met a deer stalker who hasn't been like, look at this rifle, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And then like, oh, look at these binoculars, and like we have a bit of, you know, when you like meet someone new out stalking, and you're just like, oh, what have you got there? What's this? And you kind of, it's just a bit of a show off kind of thing. I think basically all deer stalkers are a little bit like that.
We are all suckers for it.
Yeah.
And it is the reason that the vast majority of these like Chinese sellers on Amazon survive, because you buy like some absolute piece of crap from China that you're like, this is going to transform my stalking.
Mm-hmm.
Turns up and you're like, this is absolute garbage.
Yeah. It's definitely a bit of a man thing as well. You know,
yeah.
Boys and their toys. So
well, as someone said to us last week, he who dies with the most toys wins.
Which I have now adopted.
Yeah, I was going to say, I came home immediately and said that to my other half, and just looked at me and was like, you're such a child.
Yes. Trying to get other halves to understand the
pains of needing kit.
They're never that sympathetic. I find. Bizarre.
I now just have the stuff delivered to my office. That way they never know. Yeah.
The receptionist brings you like a moderator. You're like, oh, did they give you the rifle stock?
That came straight into the centre of Oxford,
Blind.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness,
your colleagues must have been a little bit bemused when you opened that in the office.
Well, I took that behind the filing cabinets and opened it there just to.
Okay.
Someone found me in the corner, like, my precious.
It is actually a really beautiful thing.
So that's probably my contribution to Bobby's Bits. I still can't believe I'm calling it that. In terms of recent purchases, that's been my big one. And it's for anyone out there considering them, I would strongly advise you had a look. I've got one of their sort of older models. I think it's called the Cruiser. But they do the Carrot. Yeah, sounds cool, doesn't it?
I think it's called the Winston, their new one, isn't it? Which is a lot more.
Well, they've got the Churchill, the Carrot,
and
the Crusader.
Ooh.
And I think basically depending on what you're after, like, I mean, they're all pretty adjustable, but some are more kind of like on the target rifle end of the spectrum, and some are more on the hunting end. And so I think it is important that you kind of understand what you're going to want to use it for before you buy one of them. But they are superbly built, amazing company to deal with, all come with a 2-year warranty. If you want them to, they'll fit a Spartan bipod adapter to it. What are those like sling swivel things that like
the QD ones?
QD ones, if you want. It's
definitely cool.
Yeah, I mean, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, I noticed it tighten up my grooves, and that I'm not the world's best shot, but
it's a lot more ergonomic, isn't it? I mean, I'm left-handed. I'm left-handed.
Get out.
I know.
Leave.
I know.
You take the 6.5 with you.
I know. Aren't left-handed people? They are called the devil or something, aren't they?
Oh.
Heathens or something. There is some sort of devilish connection. I don't really know.
Oh god.
So there is. Someone was telling me the other day all about it. Anyway. And this now means, because it's like a thumb hole and it's very sculpted, I could never actually shoot this Tom's rifle ever again, because it's just...
That was the entire reason I bought it.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
It just precludes left-handed people completely. But it is, if you are right-handed, it is so ergonomic. I kind of I've shouldered it with the right hand, even though it felt really weird. But like everything just fits, and it sits, exactly where it should.
The trigger control you gain on it as well is amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it is very smart, and I'm extremely jealous.
Yeah.
And the laminate as well is quite nice, because you get the timber element, the wood element, but you don't have the downside of it warps.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about the rain.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like, it's not like one of those really funky laminates that's like got pink in it and stuff, which I'm not a big fan of.
No, I was going to say you can go for whatever colour you want, or if you're complete snobs like us, you can still go for, I think mine's called the Walnut Classic, which is yeah, it still looks kind of.
It looks good.
Woody.
Looks woody. Yeah. We like a bit of wood.
So that's my latest purchase. I mean, my upcoming ones. Well, I've also purchased an Ember Leaf Kale knife, which again is going to really alienate.
The kale.
Kale, Cael,
Right.
which is the kind of curvy blade one.
Yeah.
I've
With
got
the thick end. The it's wider on the tip than it is in the.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I've got one of those coming. Look at you laughing. Got one of those coming in a couple of weeks' time.
That's going to be awesome. We were doing some red. We were grallicking some red deer the other day, and both of us are currently using Moras, which are great. Don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong with a Mora. They're fantastic. I will continue to use them more because I'm cheapskate. But especially on red deer, or anything with like a thick amount of hair and skin, I sharpened it before I left.
Yeah.
And I got to like doing the back legs and it was blunt. Yeah. And I had to borrow yours.
Yeah, and exactly same with mine. I mean, I keep my Mora in pretty good nick, and in fairness, I really struggle to move away from the Mora because it's cheap, so if you lose it, it doesn't really matter. Both the sheath and the knife can go in the dishwasher, which to me is like, as a lazy person, is revolutionary.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not really looking forward to it with the Ember Leaf, the fact that I'm actually going to have to wash it up. I mean, yes, you might lose an edge relatively quickly, but you can also get it back relatively quickly. But I think for the reasons Harry just mentioned, I thought, sod it, I'll do it. And to be honest, shot quite a lot of deer so far this season, which for me, in my mind, runs from the 1st of August. And basically, I was like, well, sod it. I think I've earned it.
You deserve it.
I deserve it. I'm worth it.
Listen to us justifying us.
Yeah.
Expensive knives. Totally silly.
Need it.
But I think we both, once we were stood there like grallicking the reds, we were kind of like, okay, this is why gillies in Scotland and stalks in Scotland use these, because if you are genuinely doing like 2 or 3, hinds or whatever you have, to be able to, and having a sharp knife, you can genuinely do it so much quicker.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it kind of is worth it. And if you have to do, if you shot 2 fallow or something, you could probably save yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely not justification. You could probably save yourself a couple of minutes.
I'll use that one when I haven't told the other half I've got one coming yet. So when it arrives in the post, and she's like, "What's this and how much did it cost?" I'll be like, "Before you say anything, Harry says this will save me a couple of minutes each time."
Yeah, maybe 2 or 3.
We'll see how that goes down.
More time to spend with you and the dog.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So I've got that coming, and then I should really then stop buying, but I can't help myself. I want to upgrade the legs on my Spartan bipod because I love the Spartan bipod concept because in the Chiltern Hills where Harry and I store, 99% of our stalking is from a high seat or off sticks, and there's probably the very odd occasion I use a bipod. And so for me, whilst I think Harris bipods are great, I just can't really justify having it permanently attached to my rifle for the 2, maybe 3 deer I'll shoot off it a year. So the spike on, pop off kind of system worked great. But I was a bit too much of a cheapskate when I first bought mine, and I bought the light version, which has non-adjustable legs, and have basically found I need adjustable legs. Mm-hmm. So I want to upgrade the legs on that.
Yeah. And we should say that you could very easily use the fixed leg javelin.
Yeah.
That would be fine in somewhere that wasn't quite as hilly as where we are. But where we are, genuinely very, 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 very hilly. So, you could be shooting massively up a hill or down. And so it's just, you can get so much off putting it on a rucksack.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need it properly cranked up if you're shooting, right up on the side of like one of the hills. And you're in the bottom of the valley or whatever.
I just don't think the fixed leg. I mean, if you want one for the occasional shot you're going to take, and it's very flat ground, strongly advise it. But I just don't think they really do the whole Spartan system justice, which, to my mind, is a really sleek, slick, elegant piece of kit that just works flawlessly.
Yeah.
And I kind of just found with the fixed leg thing, it just didn't really do that for me. So
no,
I'm going to upgrade the legs, and then I'm going to fess up to the other half and just stop buying stuff.
You're going to fess up?
Yeah.
Okay.
On that one.
Somewhere else to live?
The garage.
So you'll be like
I've already installed the bed, just like in readiness. And in fairness, the legs for that, So you can literally buy just the new legs for the Spartan bipod system, which for the ones I'm looking at is 120 quid. So
yeah, I think expensive legs.
Yeah, I think she can live with that.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Incremental.
Now when she's been listening to this like really interesting podcast, she's like, "What? You're gonna do it all what?"
So that was 100.
Yeah, the bipod was this, the form stock was this, the end leaf was that.
How many horses can I buy with that?
Yeah. Oh god. But I think you're now a convert to the Spartan system as well, or
well,
not yet.
I'm again lagging slightly behind Tom, but I haven't yet purchased one. It's on the list. It is on the Bobby's Bits list. I probably will, purely because of the sour predicament, whereby the sour version of the Spartan bipod is 600. Yeah, it is actually £600.
So that's double, at least double.
I thought it was a mistake. 600.
You're like, I get a free rifle with this, right?
I was like, this can't be right.
It's a sick joke.
Yes, because it literally is the Spartan javelin with the Spartan do a spigot adapter for it. So you're basically paying like another 250 quid genuinely just for the sour like logo, and it is a little bit more sleek, granted, but it's just madness. Anyway, I'm going to try and fetch the gunsmith adapter, which people on the internet have assured me can be done.
And so people on the internet are famously reliable.
Yeah, the internet is a wealth of information, and like you say, famously reliable. There's a stalking directory though.
Oh, okay.
The guys, we like the guys on stalking directory, and I've had actually, this is a real testament to the stalking directory because we've genuinely had some, well, I say good experience, been a bit mixed occasionally, but majority of it really, really, really helpful. Like I put a little post on, like, has anyone, put one on, and the guy was like, yeah, I'll send you a video of me doing it, and he literally like had did it, and sent me videos like a gunsmith. Really nice. So in the exact rifle I've got, so a bit more confident. So I'm going to put the adapter thing in because I think that's really nice, flush mounted. Kind of is the whole point of it, that you don't have to have it on the rifle all the time. Although I've always had a Harris bipod on my rifle, so I'm kind of used to it. But anyway.
I think you'll transform to it pretty quickly. So I have one of those really sad, geeky looking bum bag things that I stalk with, and I literally just have the bipod in there 24/7 with the knife, gloves, all the other useless crap you end up stalking with, and it's great because for those one or two times that you see a deer and you think I could really do with a bipod now. Actually, I do. I've got one right here in the bum bag.
It's good that me and Tom both use bum bags, and I think without that I would lose it all the time. Yeah, I genuinely leave things all over the shop. I left my bolt in your car the other day. Yeah, not ideal. Anyway,
don't listen to that, Tim.
No. Well, bolt's right, isn't it?
I don't know. Oh, I don't know.
Maybe not. Okay, we won't fess up to that. That didn't happen. So yeah, I'm not a combat yet, but I'm going to go for learning from Tom's mistakes. I'm going to go for the javelin
pro hunt.
Yeah, whatever you call it, the one with the adjustable legs already. I mean, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? Because you can buy the light for whatever it is, 110,
120 or something.
Something like that. It's not very much, and you can upgrade the legs for £50 each. Yeah. Which brings it at £40 less than the Pro Hunt, which is basically the same thing with the adjustable legs. So
we both thought we'd cracked it here, and we're like, we've undermined the whole Spartan system. Yeah. We can get an amazing bipod for really cheap, and actually it turns out the body of the bipod, you call it that, or the bolt, the head of the bipod,
the main bit,
is better on the Pro Hunt. It's got a kind of switch on the back of it or something, so
it fixes open, which apparently I need. Yeah, which I do. Obviously, I need.
You have to suck it into the marketing material.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to buy with my next month's shooting budget. Maybe the following one. Might be a Christmas present actually. Quite nice. So yeah, that's on the kit list. But I've also got to mount it as well.
Oh, you've got to mount it as well. So I thought you were about to say you've got a mountain of stuff on your list.
Well, I've got sort of stuff that's long off in the distance. Like obviously I've bought in now to the Sauer 4044 model. Yeah. I've got the action and the barrel of a 308, but I could just buy. You can buy other barrels, so I could just buy a 243 barrel, get rid of my other 243, buy a 243 barrel, and I've got same rifle.
Why though? You've already got the 243.
But right, it's fine if you're a right-handed shooter, okay? Because all of my rifles up until now have been right-handed because I've been a cheapskate and always, well, not cheapskate, but second-hand rifles are great. But I've never been able to find left-handed second-hand rifles because they never come up. This new Sauer 404 is left-handed, and so I'm going to get really used to shooting a left-handed bolt. And I'm going to go and use a right-handed rifle, and I'm going to reach for the bolt, and it's not going to be there, and that's going to be really crap.
I take it all back. I see your logic now. Yes. I bow to your superior logic.
Yeah, exactly. And also, the bolt head and the magazine are exactly the same because it's 308. Because all you're changing is the size of the bullet.
Yeah.
Listen to me justify it.
I'm just getting you well practiced, so when you go home,
I know,
and that 243 barrel turns up in the post, and she looks at it and goes, "What is this?"
It'll be, I don't know.
So I think I've told you before. I've got a friend called Mark, who I probably shouldn't name on the podcast, but I just have. Basically, I remember going around to his house ages ago, and he was showing me some of his guns, and he's got 8 gun cabinets, and he's got a lot of guns.
8 gun cabinets.
8 gun cabinets. And I can't remember what the capacity of one of them is, but ridiculous. Anyway, he was showing me some of them, and I came downstairs, and his wife was down there, and I can't remember exactly what she said to me, but she said something along the lines of, "He's got a ridiculous number of guns. I know he's got 8 because he's got 8 gun cabinets, and each gun cabinet holds 1 gun." And I looked at him. I was like, and he just kind of put his finger up to his lips and was like, "Shh." And he was like, "She thinks each cabinet can only hold 1 gun. They can actually hold 4 or something ridiculous." So I mean, he had basically an arsenal of weaponry.
Christ.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's really hope the Thames Valley Police aren't listening.
Yeah. We are so sorry, Mark.
1 per cabinet.
Yeah.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
I've got 2 cabinets, so
see,
I'm sure I could do that.
Yeah. I've got 2 cabinets, but I can genuinely, in one of them, I can only fit 2 guns. Genuinely.
Oh.
Yeah. Mainly because of the scopes. I want to get a scope with a kind of.
Is it like a shotgun cabinet?
I didn't think it was, but I just find by the time you've got a big old scope on it now, you can just fit them all out evenly. I can only fit a couple in there.
That's not ideal.
Need to branch out.
I need to expand my security offering as well. God, that's the problem with the kit list, isn't it? Just never ends. I need now a bigger safe for all my bullets and ammunition.
Yeah. See, that's probably where I'm struggling as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I could do with a massive 10 rifle shotgun safe as well.
So you've got a new save, Spartan Bipod, 243 barrel.
Yes.
What else is on your Bobby's Bits list?
Well, I'm getting a new Moderator. It's not that exciting because I've already got. It's a Wildcat Predator, which I've already got for my 2006, but I'm getting another one because I like them so much in 308. Because apparently, obviously with the modular system on you can replace the threaded element and the baffles.
Yeah.
But apparently, by the time you've done that, you may as well just buy a new one because they're the savings nothing.
Well,
so you may as well have 2 mods.
It's something else shiny.
It is,
yeah. Who doesn't want a shiny thing?
But I genuinely I think they're so great. Made in the UK.
Yeah.
I've never had nothing ever goes wrong with them.
Yeah.
God, I really should not say that. Touch wood.
Just sworn on the podcast. First swear.
Oh gosh. Sorry. Apologies, kiddies. And you can take them apart and put them in the dishwasher.
Have you ever actually put it in the dishwasher?
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
Yeah. Not with plates and cutlery.
I was about to say, here, let me serve your bangers and mash with a bit of carbon.
The other occupants of the house were out, and I thought this is a brilliant opportunity to not get my hands covered in black soot. I'll just chuck in the dishwasher with, one of the detergent pads.
Yeah.
And works a treat. You have to re-grease all of the seals, but I don't, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll pop a bit of copper grease on them. Works a treat. Nice and clean.
I've got a house skin, which I love. And that you can kind of strip apart into 2 bits, and I literally just plunge it in hot water every kind of 6 months, and you basically get this thick black soup coming left, but it's quite satisfying.
Yeah, but some people say you should just not clean them because there are a lot of moderators that you genuinely cannot take apart, and they're just we'll squirt a bit of WD-40 through it once a blue moon, and
So I bought some. I think it's called Silent Save from Napier, which is just a spray you put in your Moderator after you've shot it.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, I mean, this is probably going to backfire now that I'm saying this, but each time I dismantle my mod, once you've cleaned it, it looks good as new.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that's the spray, like helping it stay, or whether it actually they're just not as corrosive as you think they are.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you. I think cleaning them is a good idea, because I used to have a Rodale one that I just came with my gut, and I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. I wasn't that convinced by it. But anyway, it was like a modular one where you could screw out each thing, and obviously the bloke had it before, he'd never cleaned it in his life, and it was like all pitted, and bits of it were almost eaten all the way through. So it obviously does extend the life of it. I don't know if it makes really any difference to like its ability to deaden sound until it actually breaks. I'm not really sure. Just a destruction test.
Was it? I'm going to say, so no one will find out. Let's drill some holes in your mod.
Yeah. No, well, I suppose also it's a bit dangerous, isn't it? If it did start to break and then you shot through it, then it's not a good time, is it? Yeah, so that's on the list, but that's not immensely interesting. But that's just so that I can shoot my 308s, within a mile of a residential house.
Yeah,
because it's an absolute cannon.
It's fine. Just come out with me when I've got my kit off, and we'll be deaf together.
Yes, we can do that. Speaking of, my hearing is terrible, and I definitely attribute it to shooting too much without hearing protection. Don't do that, kids.
So
wear ear defenders, even when you've got a moderator.
I was going to say, I always thought shooting with a mod was fine until I took my other half out stalking for the first time, come back in August, so a couple of months ago. She's a doctor, and basically I'd always been like, oh, it's fine, like the gunshot with the moderator is basically nothing. And she'd always said, are you sure about that? And I'd be like, yeah, no, it's absolutely fine. Anyway, headshot fallow whilst we were out from high seat, so she was sat right next to me. She literally turned to me immediately and was like, you are getting hearing protection. And she was like, that is ridiculously loud, even with a mod. Yeah. So I can't remember the exact numbers, but basically, like, hearing loss occurs at whatever decibels, which is actually surprisingly low.
Yeah.
And even with a moderator on, you're still above that level.
Yeah.
So you are still damaging your hearing even with a mod. Yeah, not to the same extent as with an unmoderated rifle, but you are still screwing up your hearing. And
it doesn't come back. Once it's gone.
That's shocking.
No, I know.
You can't buy it from Bushware?
No, I mean, you know what? The human body is amazing at healing itself. But the hearing just never, ever will improve or get better.
I think that's one of those bits that God was like, if you screw this up, I can't be bothered.
You're so dumb.
Yeah, you are so dumb. You deserve to walk around dead.
Yeah, it's definitely a sort of Darwinism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will be wearing ear defenders from now on. And maybe even putting some of those funky electronic in-ear jobs that you've got on the kit list as well. But
I think you should. I was really surprised. I didn't think, I mean, they're expensive, and I didn't think I'd be able to stalk with them, but actually you can. And they've got 3 different hearing settings on them, and actually one of them is better than my own hearing. So if you've got it on that, it's actually a bit too much, because like you're walking around and you'll tread on the leaf and go, oh my God, everything can hear me for miles. I'm so loud. And actually it's only when you take them out and you then tread back on that same leaf that you realise they've just magnified.
Is it in both ears?
Yeah.
You get the sound? Oh, so they're kind of Bluetooth-y linked to something?
Well, they're just each like independent.
And they've each got a microphone so you can control the you can control the volume in each. Right, fine.
And they are genuinely really comfy, because I find with the kind of over-ear defenders, I'm a glasses wearer, so as soon as I've got glasses on and then the big over-ear things, they press the glasses legs into my head.
Yeah.
And I kind of end up with a horrendous headache at the end.
I don't mind them at all, actually. I much prefer to put things inside my ears. But,
I see,
what I find is when you're out stalking, if you have to take a quick shot, it's another thing to do, isn't it? Either pick them up off your legs or wherever you've got them, or off your head and move them down. You need both hands to do that quite a lot of the time. And then it's just another thing, isn't it? And it slows you down by the 10 or 15 seconds or whatever, and that might be the difference between shooting something or not. So, yeah, but I do need to do it, because my hearing is genuinely bad.
I'm now actually feeling not too bad about having a form, stock, end belief, and whatever, and bipod legs on my list, because your list is just horrendous.
But I'm going to spread this over at least a couple of months.
November and December.
No, the budget won't allow for that. So it'll probably be the year.
Okay.
For all of, maybe not even all of this. I don't think we get all of this.
You're going to have to come up with some new stuff between now and the next podcast, because if we come back to Bobby's Beers and you're just telling us the same thing every time.
We will do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll definitely. Well, I always think of new things to buy.
Yeah,
it just always happens. And by all means, listeners, do send in your own Bobby's bits. We'd be very keen to hear what's on your kit list, and we can maybe make some comment on.
Would it? Yeah, and like kit recommendations, but also things you've tried and have worked. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Actually,
be really interested to hear like if you found something that you think solves a problem or something we've been talking about or that would benefit other people, then shout, because that'd be really interesting.
No, we are very much open to suggestions. That would be fantastic. A bit of interaction.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think so. I'm all about like 3 followers that we haven't alienated.
Yeah. The 3 Creedmoor lot have gone. We've got 3 left who might maybe shoot 3 away, probably.
Yeah, probably.
But that's fine.
They're like, yes, we found out people.
This is our place.
These guys are heroes.
Well, we're hoping that this is a place for deer stalking, because we were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
There are a few there are quite a few hunting, shooting, fishing podcasts on the sort of podcast sphere, but there aren't really any that's specifically about deer stalking, and it's such a big topic that we thought, there's easily enough within a podcast. Me and Tom are always talking about all this sort of stuff anyway, so we thought, why not put it online and see what people think, and if there's any sort of interaction as well. But we're not particularly interested in shotgun shooting or.
No, I mean both do it, but at the same time not really.
I don't really get it in the same way.
No, for me, it sounds really rude and sounds really snobbish, but if someone invites me, I'll never turn down an invitation. I'll go and I'll have an amazing time.
Oh, if I must,
paid myself.
Your 400 birthday.
But at the same time, if someone says to me, "You've got to get up tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock to go shotgun shooting," I'll be like, "Bah, I think I've got a headache."
Yeah. If it was like between like wild fowling and stalking, 100% stalking every single time. I just find it so much more interesting. I don't really get the whole gear thing in the same way with shotguns.
No.
It's not as appealing to me.
Bought a silver pigeon and I look at it, I'm like, that's me done for life now.
Yeah.
Whereas I look at my rifle, I'm like, I'm going to pimp you out big time over the course of your life. It's going to be, what's that broom analogy? Where you've replaced so much with
the handle and the
you
broom
basically
bits so many times.
Yeah. My rifle by the end of its life is basically going to be God knows what.
Yeah, okay.
So we should probably say, talking of kind of podcasts, and I mean, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, but our next podcast will be God knows when, whenever we can figure out how to do this again. But our plan is we are going to have some guests on. We're probably going to follow a similar format to today. We're also going to kind of talk about what we've been up to recently, because I mean, hopefully some of what we've been up to will be of interest. Mm-hmm. In terms of guests, we've got a short list of people we want to get on, and some we've kind of lined up already. But if there are other people you are thinking of, you would like to hear interviewed, or you think you are interesting enough yourself to be interviewed, then shout out to us, and we'll make sure to include your recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, we are very open on the format. If there's anyone who's got suggestions for things they want us to talk about, or questions, or just sort of anything, discussion, kit recommendations, anything, we want to hear from you. So do write in. We'll put a sort of email address or something, won't we, on the description to write into. That'd be fantastic. But thank you very much for listening, and we will look forward to welcoming you to the next podcast. Like, subscribe, and comment.
And whatever else it is you need to do on whatever platform we've managed to upload this to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks very much.